Hey y'all, Gremlin here with the Gremlin Gamer. So I'm back again with the beginner's guide. I do apologize last time. It was really frustrating to realize that I guess I just didn't hit the button on my microphone hard enough, and I recorded that whole thing and did not have the mic on, so there's no sound. I actually ended up taking that video down, and it looks like 10 of y'all attempted to watch it. I do apologize. Alright, so getting right to it. So basically, as I was saying before, it's one of these things I've been hearing both online and the real world, is that new players are really kind of at a loss as how to navigate this game and what's what and how to do what and what you should be doing. So I'll be honest, first of all, I don't know what intro campaign it has new players play. Uh, I am an OG Destiny 1 player. Basically, I didn't jump to Destiny 2 immediately. It took me a while to get a PlayStation 4. I finally got into Destiny 2, and I've been playing it pretty much ever since. Um, anyways, so when I started Destiny 2, and basically the intro campaign was the Red War campaign, and that campaign no longer exists. So aside from that intro mission, I'm not sure what else it does, where it kind of leaves you standing here. So what I'm going to cover is what you should be seeing on your directory when you first get into the game and you're in orbit. That being if you obviously got far enough to where you got your drop ship. Like I said, I assume they're still putting you through those very first opening missions just for the sake of story. So typically when you first boot up, you're going to be, back up. Let's just do this for the hell of it. I'll get into the menu as well. So as a new player, and I mentioned this in the previous video, is you've got 3 slots. It's worth it to basically make a character for each of those. Typically we all have a main. I'm a hunter main personally, but over the years I have taken on the Titan and the Warlock, and I enjoy playing them just as much for the most part. I still identify with my hunter. I still prefer to play my hunter for the most part, but I would be lying if I was to say I don't enjoy playing Warlock or Titan. They're just not my main thing. And that is kind of it, because even if you're playing these classes, and it's not to say that you can't invest in those spare characters, but when resources get tight, you will have to say, okay, I'm focusing on my main. Whatever exotics need to get prioritized, who's getting the best weapons, so on and so forth. You can kind of do that. So that said, the reason why I say this is because sometimes you may think you want to play a particular class, and it's not till you've played other classes that you realize, okay, I actually like this better. Or for whatever reason, you might decide to stick with your first choice. Your instincts were right. But this just gives you some wiggle room as far as just getting different play styles under your belt. And usually there's always some kind of weird glitch here and there over the eventually pops up where you can take advantage of having multiple tunes. So, pick your character, and it takes us where we were just a second ago, where you're floating in your ship. So view journey is just basically takes you to the journey part of your regular menu. This just gets into your various triumphs, things that you can unlock. It's basically just, stuff that helps you earn banners, color schemes, things like that. Shaders, that is. Or titles, like getting the Iron Lord title in Iron Banner. It's just one of them. That's one of the only ones I've ever actually earned for the most part. Anyways, so you go to director, and this takes you to your destinations. And this is where I think a lot of people get confused. Okay, so you see planets, then you also see these emblems up here, each describing something different. These even get more bizarre: Eternity and Dreaming City. You got the tower, and then you have the last city. Yeah, okay, so basically you want to go to the tower. First thing, tower is basically your main social hub. used to, this is the only way you could get to your bank as well. Now they've changed it where if you're in your ship, you press down on the D-pad and you can access your vault. As long as you're not trying to get into anything, you can do your vault from here. You don't actually have to go down to the tower anymore. But there's other reasons to go to the tower. So you go to the tower because for one, you have your post office there. So anytime there's stuff that hits the ground that you can't collect, it gets sent to the postmaster. Or if you unlock something, or your vehicles are full, whatever it is that you've unlocked, it ends up there. Now you don't have an infinite amount of space with the postmaster, so you do want to check it pretty regular to make sure that otherwise you'll lose whatever can be saved in there. So before we go to the tower, as I was going to say, there's different things to do here aside from Katie's post office. You've also got the leaders of the different factions that give you missions. So you have Zavala, who's the commander of the Vanguard. This is pretty much what focuses on your story missions, things like that. PvE, player versus the computer kind of stuff. Then you got Lord Shax over here, who runs basically our PvP stuff. So anything that's player versus player, this is where you're going to go to get your missions, quests, quest rewards, rank ups, all that good stuff. Similarly, you have, I can't remember this dude's name. Wow. Saint 14, who runs the Trials of Osiris, which is like a kind of high stakes version of PvP. Usually three people versus 3 people teams. And it focuses more on gunplay and strategy. You don't, basically, like all your cooldowns are slowed down a bunch, so you can't use your abilities as often. It just puts it down to more skill versus skill type of PvP, but it gives you a whole different weapon set, armor set that you can earn that might have some advantages over the stuff that you're going to get from other vendors like Zavala or Lord Shax. Then you've also got Master Rahul. This is where you go to have your engrams. Basically find out what you're going to get when you pick up loot, if it doesn't tell you automatically. And then we have... Where's he at? Oh, there we are. The gunsmith. So this guy also sells different weapons. He changes up his available weapons every week with random rolls. He also sells stuff you can use to upgrade weapons with. And he'll also usually be the one that hands out catalysts for exotic weapons when you earn them. And then here we have a Core Ray. She will basically be there to help you unlock various skills related to your skill trees for your various classes and subclasses. Hawthorne basically handles any of your clan stuff, so you will probably end up hooking up with a clan, hopefully, of like-minded players, and basically you get, whether you even play with any of these people or not, just the fact that you're all in the clan together doing activities in the game is going to earn you stuff. Armor and weapons, cores for upgrading gear, and so on. Then we have the Drifter. Drifter runs the Gambit game. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but basically he's where you're going to go to cash in and rank up, similarly with anything to do with Gambit. And down here we have Ada One, who just basically, she used to run the Black Foundry, or the Black Forge, which is a way of earning all these really cool weapons. Now they're just kind of, you earn them other ways, and she just is your source to get stuff that allows you to change up the way your character looks. More importantly, it allows you to get basically these items that allow you to change the look of your armor piece without actually having to change the armor piece. So if you like the stats on that armor piece but want it to look like something else, then this allows you to do that. And then we've got Zer. Zer only shows up on the weekend. He sells exotics, and he only takes strange coins, which you can earn doing various things in the game. Good way for new players to earn exotic weapons and armor, and also just unlock new looking armor, get better armor pieces, and upgrade gear. Catalysts. He sells all the really stuff that everybody really wants most of the time. If you've been playing for a long time, his offerings are probably not going to impress you all that much, but it is what it is. So, that said, as I mentioned, we have the Vanguard, we have Gambit, we have Crucible, and then we have Legends. Legends is basically a shortcut to all the different raids. This is all the really high-end, in-game shit that's extremely difficult, and usually requires 6-man teams, and so on and so forth. Vanguard is basically story mission stuff, only here this basically is a little bit more powerful, slightly more difficult. They really only bumped. Nightfall used to be way harder. They've really tamed it down. You can increase the difficulty on it. The thing is, if you do that though, it eliminates matchmaking. So unless you got people to play with, you're kind of stuck in advance, which is not going to give you the greatest amount of loot, and it's not going to be as challenging. But you'll get some stuff one way or the other. Just you basically get the opportunity to get 3 exotic engrams, basically every 3 rounds you do. At 3, 6, and 9, you get an exotic engram. And you can either run Nightfalls, which will be a different quest each week. Ops is really not much different. I'm not really sure, other than you just don't get the same opportunity for certain loot or something. I don't know. Only this one, the missions are random, which is kind of good, because sometimes these suck or they're boring because you just started doing the same ones. Grandmaster Nightfall is the maxed out difficulty version. No matchmaking. You got to go in with your own team. We do have the alternative of Onslaught, though. Onslaught's interesting because basically it's still three-player cooperative. Only you're defending a spot and going back into a different little dimension to fight mini bosses and then a final boss. And this one allows you to get some unique loot from Zavala, as well as some really hard to get seasonal weapons. And it's just a fun alternative from doing the Nightfall. Then with Gambit, Gambit is kind of a strange mode. It's basically a 4-player versus 4-player competitive co-op. So basically you're split into 2 teams of 4. You're thrown onto a map, and the other team is thrown onto basically a duplicate of that map. You're basically fighting on the same map with the exact same enemies. The map is broken up into 4 quadrants. There's the neutral safe zone where you start, and then there's 3 quadrants where enemies will spawn through the match. Then you got a central hub where you have a bank. This bank is where you're going to stow motes that drop when you kill enemies. You can carry up to 15, and whenever you insert the amount varies. There's a particular word for this I can't think of. Basically, if you insert 5, 10, or 15, you will basically drop a enemy guard on the opposing team's side. It closes their bank, and an enemy pops up, and they can't deposit motes until they kill that enemy. 5 drops a small enemy, 10 drops a big enemy, 15 drops the biggest enemy. And they can do the same to you. Also, once you deposit 40 motes, a portal opens allowing you or one of your teammates to invade the enemy's map and try to sabotage them by killing them, causing them to drop their motes. If you drop your motes by getting killed by either an enemy or an invader, half of what you had is lost forever. The other half hits the ground, and if you're lucky, you have teammates nearby that can snag them before they disappear. Basically, you don't want to die carrying motes. You want to get as many as you can, preferably 5, in increments of 5, 10, or 15, but usually, in my opinion, if you got 7, drop them. If you got 11, drop them. If you're close to 15, like with 13, hold on to them, but just be cautious, and then drop them in the bank. So basically, you got to drop 100 motes in the bank. Once you drop 100 motes, then the boss pops up. But you can't go straight to attacking them. Once again, in one of those 3 quadrants, 2 mini-bosses are going to pop up that you have to take out first to unshield the main boss. Usually you got 3 damage phases you're going to go through, unless you just have a really good team that knows how glitch some damage where you can get overkill damage, where it'll accidentally take more damage than it's supposed to during a single damage phase. It's kind of hard to pull off, especially with randos, but sometimes it happens. Also, alternatively, invading takes on a completely different nature now. Instead of just simply trying to cause your opponents to lose motes, if you're down to the boss phase as well as them, if an invader kills you or one of your allies, any damage you've done to the boss is reverted. And vice versa. If you invade the enemy team and take out some of their guys, it'll restore certain chunks of health back to their boss. Now, the thing is, it requires half as much damage to knock back that enemy's damage back to the original point it was before the invader killed you, if that makes sense. So basically, if you had them down, you knocked down a fourth of the boss's health, invader kills one of you, boss is back at full health, it will take half as much damage from you and your allies to get that first quarter of health knocked down than normal. So it does create an impediment, but it's also forgiving to a point. So if you've got a good team, you've got good DPS, you can catch back up relatively quick. Unless you got a really nasty team that just keeps invading and whacking your guys. It's part of the reason why there's a lot of love-hate in regards to Gambit, because it can be really fun. Other times it can be having you ripping your hair out and screaming. But once again, it has a unique loot pool. There's always some really good weapons that's only available through Gambit, so that's another reason why a lot of people grit their teeth and play it. Then you have Crucible. Crucible is basically your player versus player, so you got competitive, which is just basically two three-man teams, just basically going for the maximum kills. Then we have Control, which is basically your capture zones, 6 players versus 6 players. You got 3 zones to capture and hold. Relic. Achieve victory and relics, score points using relics. Okay, that one's a weird mode where there's basically these things called relics, like this sword and this shield that can pop up that you can use that make you overpowered. But it also puts like a target on your back, like you'll explode after a certain amount of time or something weird. Rumble is basically 6-man free-for-all, everybody for themselves to get the max kills. And then this is the experimental mode. They just kind of do some strange stuff in here. Rotating modes with checkmate modifiers. I don't even know what that is. Then, of course, I mentioned Trials of Osiris. And if we're having a Iron Banner event, that's also where you would see Iron Banner available is here in the Crucible section. Next, we have Eternity. Now, Eternity is kind of two things in one. Up until recently, it was just Dares of Eternity, which is just this weird mode hosted by Azure and the Intergalactic Horse of Infinity. And it basically is a 6-player event where you're all cooperatively fighting through a bunch of different events that are very strange, and you fight a boss at the end, and if you do particularly well, sometimes you get a bonus round with the boss and you get better loot. I've only had that happen once or twice, but still, this is a good alternative. Once again, there's a lot of unique stuff that you can only get here. Probably one of the best weapons worth farming. Dares of Eternities would be the Battler. It's a unique pulse rifle that does really good with shooting from the hip and down the sights. It comes with some really good perks, and you get it by playing Dares of Eternity, or the RX Battler, I think is what it's called. So that said, this is where you go to actually do Dares of Eternity. This is where you would actually go to Caesar on his normal days. This is where his treasure hoard is at. You can spend keys that you also earn by winning, successfully completing Dares of Eternity. These could get you basically can get you one of those Battler guns, as well as a bunch of other unique weapons and armor. Also let you unlock some different armor pieces. There's a bunch of other unique stuff that takes some serious time to unlock, but is totally worth getting. And then most recently is the Ride of the Nine. So basically, this is a new thing that's allowing, basically making it easier for people to play through dungeons. Dungeons are usually high-end material, like I was talking about earlier. Sometimes requires, actually, I think it's raids that only require 6 people. Dungeons typically are still a 3-man fire team, but they're usually really long, really difficult, and really hard, and usually you have to have a dedicated fire team. There's usually no matchmaking. This is basically explaining how the mechanics work, so you're not having to guess and puzzle it out yourself. He also has a lower difficulty rating and matchmaking, although you can ramp up the difficulty and play with other people. Basically, they've upgraded and updated all of the various loot from these different dungeons, and so they've been cycling through them. So this week it's Prophecy, next week it'll be Prophecy again, and then I think next week all 3 are going to be available. So this is also usually kind of end of the game stuff, but this is making it a little more easier for new players to jump into dungeons and get good dungeon loot and get their hands dirty and experiencing doing a dungeon. Then we have the Dreaming City, and basically Dreaming City is a location. So this is basically a large map with a bunch of different stuff to do and interact with and explore. It has its own story beats, but you can basically just go there to look around and explore and see what you can find or do. Much similarly, we have Nessus. Once again, it's just a massive map. These locations right here with the arrow and the circle, these are drop zones. These are basically places you can land. So if you want to go there, that's how you just click that, and it gives you the chance to, take you there. And that's where you're going to land on that map. That goes for any of these maps that you go to. Moon, same thing. Earth has 2 landing zones. We have the EDZ, which is basically the first area you start in when you started Destiny 2. And then we have the Cosmodrome, which is where you originally started in Destiny 1 and where I think you typically start in Destiny 2 now. And there's got Europa and Neptune and Savathun's Throne World, which is kind of tied to Mars. And depending on whether you've got the most recent seasonal pass, I'm not sure if you got access to the last city or not, but basically this is another kind of public space you can go to interact to get certain activities. So there's a alternate onslaught that plays similarly, though this one has different enemies, different layouts, different maps, different equipment and power-ups. In some ways, this is actually a lot more fun than regular Onslaught, but you just don't get as good of rewards for doing it. And then there's the most current stuff, which is basically the Nether, exploring the Nether, and then the Court of Blades, which is basically just kind of a boss gauntlet run. And both of these give you access to and upgrades for the most current thing we got going on as far as the seasonal event, story, activities, so on. I know that's probably not the best description, but that's the only way I know how to describe it. And then lastly, we have the Pale Heart. So once again, if you don't have the most recent DLC, or that being the, good Lord, why can't I think of it? Anyways, you won't have access to this map or this story stuff. And that also kind of ties to the new players. Basically depends on how you're playing. Are you playing free? What's available to you? What do you have to pay extra for? I'm going to assume that anything to do with the final shape, that's what it was. I'm trying to think of, is going to cost you. Season pass is going to cost you, although the season pass at this point should be discounted. Pretty sure they do that, because I think I did that one year where I didn't get the season pass till it was almost over halfway through the season, and I got it, for, I don't remember, I think maybe $5 or $6. I didn't have to pay the full 20 or whatever. Could be wrong. That might have just been like a PlayStation Plus discount or something. So, next we have quests. So this is another place that's good to go if you're unsure of what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be going. So this usually on the top one here is going to focus on your seasonal quests, your story campaign that you're on. So if you're a first time player, this is probably where you're going to want to pay most attention to, because this is going to be your story campaign. This is usually episodic campaigns, missions, and any legendary quests you have going on. Bounties go here. These are things that you collect. Most of them are timed, some of them are not. These over here break down your various quests. So these are your featured quests, as I mentioned. Then you have your quests. These are usually ones that you take on, and this is basically everything. Every quest you have active is here. Final shape. So this being the most recent DLC, anything related to that's going to be here. In this case, for me, anything related to the current episode is going to be here. Playlists. So I think this was something I went and collected after the fact. Any exotic quests are going to be lumped up here. So usually this will be your exotic quests. Anything that's going to earn you exotic or an exotic engram, or it's there to unlock a catalyst for an exotic. And these are ones that I collected from older quests, older missions, just basically trying to cover my bases. And you have your season pass. So season pass, like in most games, just basically gives you free, well, not free loot, you're paying for it, but basically upgrade materials, weapons, usually good rolls, armor, decorations for your armor, so on and so forth. Of course, you get your store. Some of this stuff can be bought with Bright Dust, which is an in-game currency you can earn, although not frequently. And then there's silver, which you have to pay money for. And basically, you could look at it as 100 silver is the equivalent of $1. So 300 silver is $3. This ornament, that's 600 silver, is basically $6. $8. So on and so forth. I only buy stuff that costs Bright Dust, personally. Alright, so otherwise, as far as navigating the game, we have your character here. So your stats, what do they mean and what do they do? So this is relevant to your class. If you're playing a hunter, you're going to want to focus quite a bit on mobility, because aside from making you move faster, as far as walking, what's the word I'm looking for? Why can't I think of it? When you're walking sideways and shooting, it makes you do that faster. You jump higher. It basically just improves your mobility. But also as a hunter, this is directly tied to your class ability, which is your dodge. Your ability to dodge is tied, the cooldown for it is tied directly to your mobility stats. So the higher your mobility, the quicker your cooldown. Second is your resilience. Basically, this is how tough you are, how much damage you can take before you basically get knocked down and die. Typically, this used to be mostly a Titan stat. We didn't have to worry about it as much, especially back in Destiny 1, but now, because of the way they did this, you kind of want it maxed out no matter what class you're paying, because basically having it at 10 gives you an additional 30% damage reduction, which, especially in in-game content, is a must-have. You don't have to run tier 10 resilience. You can probably get away with 70, but it's a little tricky. Then we have recovery. So this is typically usually more associated with your, or also with your Titan. This has tied, this is why this is important to your Titan, obviously, besides armor rating and being tough, is it's also tied to their cooldown for their class ability, which is their ability to put up a shield. Barricade, basically. And same thing with your Warlocks. Warlocks have a recovery. They typically focus on having a high recovery stat. Basically allows them to restart recovering health quicker and more sooner. Basically, once they can duck out of the fire, they'll start recovering health quicker than a hunter or a titan, because they usually have higher focus in recovery. And also, this affects their cooldown for their ability to put down rifts. Rifts basically just allow them to put down a pool that either gives them healing or a buff of some sort. Discipline affects your grenade cooldown, and obviously the higher the number you have here, the better it increases the cooldown on your grenade. Intellect impacts the cooldown of your super, and strength impacts the cooldown on your powered melee. Now, typically, depending on how you have your character built, the various abilities, the various mods you have on your armor, your cooldown on these things is going to be relatively good. But typically, most people that really play this game and min-max their stats usually try to get at least 2 of these stats to 100. And if you're really good, sometimes even 3. But that's really, really, really hard to do. Especially if you're just trying to max out, something like if you have an exotic that enhances your grenades and you want to max out your grenade cooldowns. It's, for the most part, once again, if you're putting on the right mods and using your skills right here, usually you get your cooldowns. You don't really need anything better than 50 on these. And you really don't need high intellect on anything. Like, for the most part, on your other stats, you kind of just want to focus on resilience. On all 3 classes, I still like having mobility, but you also want to have a decent amount of recovery, otherwise you'll get caught with your pants down. Doesn't matter how much resilience you have. Once your health gets knocked down, it's real easy to get killed. So gear. So basically, it's gotten more complicated, but your weapons break down into 3 slots. You have your primary. Probably the biggest difference in these positions now, since everything seems to do elemental damage at some point or another, is that weapons in this top slot, whether they be purely kinetic or energy based like this weapon here, they have, well, no, I'm going to be wrong about that too. Typically, weapons in this slot, well, no, let me just start over because that's wrong as well. For the most part, these 2 slots are interchangeable at the point here, because you can run both primary weapons and secondary weapons. Primary weapons basically are weapons that are, say, like pulse rifles, auto rifles, hand cannons, pulse rifles. These are weapons that are basically kind of your main weapon. They do good damage, but they're not really overpowered. They're usually good at range. And they, for this reason, have infinite ammo. Then you have your secondary weapons. Now, these weapons are more fall in line with specialty weapons, say like a shotgun or a sniper rifle or a grenade launcher, or in this case, a glaive or a sidearm or a rocket-propelled sidearm. Basically, these are weapons that are conditional. They're designed to work either really good at close range and be really potent, or really potent at long range, like say a sniper rifle. They give you some kind of advantage in a certain unique situation. These do have a finite amount of ammo, but it's because they are powerful. Same thing with this slot. This is your power weapon slot. So this is all your heavy weapons, your grenade launchers, your heavy machine guns, your rocket launchers, your swords, certain exotics like the Leviathan's Breath, which is a bow, but it's a heavy weapon. Once again, these weapons do massive amounts of damage and have a smaller ammo pool for that reason. Also, as you may notice, you can only equip 1 exotic any weapon or 1 exotic armor piece at any given time. These are very powerful, unique pieces of gear. So you'll never be able to equip 2 exotics or 3 exotic weapons or 2 or 3 more exotic pieces of armor. Just 1 of each, which really kind of sucks. So that said, most of your armor, your good stuff, is going to be what's considered legendary, purple grade. If you're new to the game, you're probably rocking blue leveled stuff, blue colored armor, might be even still rocking some green or white. But basically, you're going to get to where the purple is the norm and yellow is the exotics. Once again, these are earned through various means, and they're special because they have a special ability. So, right now I'm rocking the Stompies, which has always been a personal favorite. And the unique trait that these boots have is they increase sprint speed and slide distance, improves high jump, strafe jump, and triple jump, and you take less damage from targets while you're in the air. These things basically give you an automatic 30 points to mobility, and they on top of that just still boost everything, so you're going to be jumping around like a spider monkey in these boots. You're going to slide faster and further. You're going to be able to strafe. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It improves all 3 jump types. And most importantly, you get a significant damage reduction when you're in the air. And so, if you're wearing these, you probably are jumping around a lot and in the air. And you're gonna be amazed by how this can save you. Unfortunately, this is only in player versus PvE. That damage bonus does not carry over into PvP play, unfortunately. Another example would be Radiant Stance machines. What these do is moderately increase airborne effectiveness and hipfire mobility, range, and accuracy for weapons that use primary ammo. Final blows with primary ammo weapons return dodge energy, which can overflow to create additional charges with full. So basically, this is giving you 2 nice perks in one. For one, it's making you more effective with primary weapons when you're firing from the hip or if you're airborne. And these also will help you get your dodge ability back more often, which can be useful for a lot of things. And another example, let me see, what's a good one? We'll actually go to, say, like a chest piece. Or even better yet, a headpiece. So then we have, say, this one here. Gain Woven Mill when activating grapple, increases flinch resistance while Woven Mill is active. Some of these are more like, so the Stompies are nice because they're not class-based. You can wear this on any subclass and it's going to work fine. Same thing with the dance machines. While others are more focused for a specific subclass. So, Raiju's Harness, Lucky Raspberry, these are both going to be with art-based subclasses, because they improve things related to that, whereas the Gwynson Vest is going to be for, actually could be good for Radiant or Void. 6 Coyote, once again, is kind of good on any class, because it just gives you a second dodge charge, whereas, say, the Gravitar Forfeit is going to primarily work good on a Void or a Prismatic if you're making use of invisibility. So, you might be wondering what I'm talking about that. Okay, so, each class that I mentioned earlier has a bunch of subclasses. So, Prismatic is kind of a mishmash of all the different subclasses, allowing you to mix and match different elemental abilities together. And it gives you a bunch of different supers to choose from. And it kind of gives you a second super as well. Then you have your other subclasses. We have Arc, as well as Void, Strand, Solar, and Stasis. So these 2 are dark energy, and these 3 are light energy. Which gets weird, but anyways. So these subclasses, aside from having an elemental affinity, usually have certain things associated with that. So with all 3 classes, whether it be a Titan, Hunter, or Warlock, Arc tends to be the subclass of speed and in-your-face melee action for the most part. Basically, you can become charged up, which increases your movement speed and also makes you more resilient to damage and also makes you harder for targets to hit. This is one of my favorite, honestly, especially with my hunter. I've always been a fan of arc hunters. You've got three different supers that you can use with this subclass as of right now. Then you have the Void. Void subclass with hunters is more about basically going invisible, setting traps, being sneaky. Arc was the gunslinger class. Basically, this is all about doing fire damage and being a sharpshooter and having throwing knives. Your strand makes you a bit more of kind of a ninja, where you've got a rope dart and throwing knives that can ricochet around and create a bunch of havoc. Your stasis, once again, kind of a ninja thing. You throw freezing flowing stars. You have 2 ice combos that you throw as your super that can create a big snowstorm that freeze enemies. Wild stuff. And so once again, so as I mentioned, say your arc is more focused on up close. Similarly, your solar classes, subclasses with all three tend to be more ranged and doing a lot of intense damage in a short period of time. Void class gets a little bit weirder and more specific. It's more of a support on all three. Well, no, I take that back. Not so much on Warlock. So probably with Warlock, it's their most aggressive, in all fairness. But with Hunters and Titans, it's a bit more support. So once again, Hunters get the ability to go invisible, set traps. Their super basically creates a big trap that locks down enemies. Titans get to go super defensive, creating shells, basically a big bubble, or creating a shield that they can throw, Captain America style, or they can also inflate it and shield enemies on the move. Shield allies on the move. More focused on that kind of thing. Where, strangely enough, with Warlock, their biggest support role is in the Solar class, where they can lay down a Well of Radiance. So, it's a little weird, it's not consistent, but there's usually some theme to a certain point with each of these subclasses on each class, each character class. So, what else can we get to? So, headgear, armor. So, basically, armor has a numerical rating. See where it says total of 90. All this stuff's been upgraded, so it's going to be max. But basically, when you're getting armor, you want that total number to be as high as possible, and you want the spikes for the various stats to be spiky. So, like for instance, this one's kind of on the flat side, but everything's fat. This one's super spiky. High spike in resilience, high spike in intellect, high spike in resilience, super high spike in mobility, high spike in strength. That's what you're really looking for. And then it's just a matter of mixing and matching to get them to balance out how you want them to balance out. And you've got to keep in mind, too, changing subclass can affect these as well. Anyways, different armor pieces can get different mods. So on this, siphon mods are typically one of the main things you can put on your headgear. Basically, when you're doing, in this case, damage with void weapons or stasis weapons, it's going to create orbs of power, which you collect, which basically boosts the cooldown on your super as well as a bunch of other things. Once again, more ability to create orbs. It's going to be a focus. You're going to be wanting to try and create orbs because they also will make you armor charge, which gives you a boost and some other stuff as well. Typically, your chest piece is going to give you the ability to give you resistance to certain elements or certain damage types, like distance or up close or blast damage. Your boots are going to give you the ability to, once again, reduce your cooldown, this time by not making orbs but by collecting orbs. And your class item is going to give you the ability to do some other stuff as well. There's a lot of flexibility on the mods, and admittedly, a lot of this is going to change dramatically here with the next expansion. They're completely overhauling armor. But in the meantime, this is how to understand the armor system for now. And I could get into all the different breakdowns of the weapon types and archetypes, so I'd be here for days. Basically, there's a lot of videos on YouTube you can find that will tell you the best meta weapons right now, and a lot of it's just trial and experimentation and seeing what works with your playstyle, what you like. That said, right now it's kind of about Arc and Void. Weapons with Arc and Void are going to be kind of your go-to. What else? Collections. This is kind of just shows what you've found so far. If you joined a clan, this is where you'll find your clan intel. And if we go all the way over here into settings, you got a lot of settings. You can change your controls, your button layout, look sensitivity, a bunch of other things. Video settings, sound settings, your gameplay settings. This is a good place to shortcut to change your character if you want. Hold on. Two very important things to note here. Full auto fire. This you can turn on. It's not going to really affect your weapons that are already full auto, but this will be nice for weapons that are not full auto. Say a hand cannon that typically only fires for every trigger pull. Now you can simply hold down the trigger. Or a pulse rifle that typically only fires a pulse at every trigger pull. Now it's full auto. Scout rifle is now full auto. That's not to say it's going to fire fast. It's going to fire as fast as the fire rate of that gun will allow it. But you're not having to sit there and keep squeezing the trigger. You can do this on melee as well, but I personally don't care for doing that. Another important one, this for some people, is helmet. You can actually have your helmet always on, or if you're like in a public space or not in combat, it will be taken off. So it just depends on if you like how your character's head looks, or if you rather show off your helmet. And then you can adjust your social shit. So this is your emblem. This is other players will see this. This is basically showing who you are, your clan, your power level. Putting it on here gives an even bigger breakdown. And actually, that said, if we go down here, this is where you can change your emblem. This will show you what it looks like too. And you'll earn these doing all kinds of things. And typically you can rock whatever one you want, but if you get into Iron Banner, you're going to want to use an Iron Banner emblem while you're competing because it gives you a bonus to your points you earn. Next you have your sparrows or your hoverboards. Hoverboards are kind of a new thing, but basically this is a weapon on most outworld maps. You can spawn at any given time and lets you get around the map a lot quicker, get past enemies. Then you have your ships. Ships, for the most part, are just purely aesthetic. They are what you get to see when you're in orbit or when you're traveling to a location. Other than that, it's purely aesthetics. They don't serve any real purpose other than they will affect your transmat. This is also the effect people will see when they basically revive you or if you respawn. It's the same effect as when you get dropped off by your drop ship. But hey, flare is flare if you want to show off your stuff. And once again, same thing with your sparrows. For the most part, they all drive more or less the same, but they all have a different look. And then your hoverboards actually function quite a bit differently. There's things you can do on the hoverboard you can't do on a sparrow. On this side, we have, as I was mentioning earlier, where you can change the appearance of stuff. Let's say I want to change my headgear, or I want to unlock something I don't have access to. See, this head here, I don't have access to. I can see what it looks like. And I do have Synthwave, which is the commodity you can spend to unlock these pieces. So, if it's an armor piece that you found and you like, but you didn't claim it, or for whatever reason, this is how you can get its look applied to whatever armor piece you want it on. Finishers are a bit more random. These, I'm not entirely sure how you unlock them. You just kind of do it by doing stuff. And they're performed randomly whenever you do a finisher. You really don't have any control which finisher you'll see, but if you've unlocked it, one of these is going to get used. Then you got your emotes. Your emotes can be assigned to 4 different things on the D-pad, and you'll earn a bunch of these. And once again, they have rarities. The exotic ones, obviously, are the better ones. And as far as changing your appearance on your armor, you would do that from here. Press down. Here's where you can choose any of the looks that you've unlocked that you might want to use. This is where you can change the shader. And also you'll unlock the ability to have save your loadouts. So if you have a certain, you've got your class, your mods, and all your weapons set up a certain way, and you want to save it, say for just doing PvE missions, but then you want a different loadout for doing PvP or Gambit. That's what this is for. This allows you to save those different loadouts so that all you have to do is press a button, and everything changes. And then when you want to go back, you just switch to the one you actually were using and switch back. Just want to make sure you don't accidentally overwrite instead of switch. But this comes in handy, and it already has kind of like preset, like, okay, this is supposed to be for Void, this would be your Arc build, Trials build, Strand build, Crucible, Solar, PvE, and eventually you can unlock more, but yeah, I gotta increase that. But anyways, it's a nice little feature. Similarly, if you go over here on this side, this will give you a breakdown of all the different mods you have. So you don't actually have to go to each armor piece to see. You can see, okay, that's what I'm running on each piece. It'll also show you what perks you have on the seasonal artifact. And also show you that, like, basically I have all the right equipment I have to take out Overlords, Unstoppables, and Barrier Champions. Yeah. Oh, lastly is this. This just has the accommodations at the end of matches and what they mean. Basically, at a glance, people can see, get a good idea of what you do the most and how high rated you are. So I've obviously got a lot of rating as far as being a joy bringer and level-headed, best dressed. Anyways, I'm going to leave the video with this, and I think that pretty much covers all the bases. And in the next video, maybe I'll do a better breakdown of weapons and armor for you guys. Alright, I'll take care. Bueno. Oh, I was trying to record a video off of for video game shit. Anyways.